well, I don't know if I ever actually believed that, you know, a near-death experience or a big change or something along those lines would change who you are fundamentally as a person. Um, I always assumed like that stuff was not really real. For lack of a better term, I thought people were making it up, blowing it up, you know, because people like to like the hyperbole of, you know, oh, this happened to me and therefore I changed my life. And, you know, there's a lot of life changing stories out there. Everybody, it seems like, has a life changing story. And, you know, I've always discounted or watched maybe with a grain of salt the life changing stories because I wondered about them. I mean, it was one of those things you're thinking, how real is that actually? But and it's not that it maybe changed me in a way that anybody would see if they saw me today as I was in, you know, early March of 2020. But for me, I did have a life-changing experience. I got a staph infection in my back. At first I thought I had a pulled muscle. Didn't go to the hospital. Then I finally did go to the hospital. They thought it was a pulled muscle or a spasm. They sent me home. It got worse and worse. And this is early on in the COVID pandemic. So, you know, all they could say to me basically was, "Hey, you don't have COVID. Tested me sometimes. You know, you're not have COVID. Go home." And about 2+ weeks in, I'm back at the hospital for like the third time. And they moved me from Cobequid. I spent the whole day in Cobequid in the COVID ward. And I know I don't have COVID because I don't have any symptoms, but they keep putting me in there. And they moved me to Halifax, and this doctor comes in, and I'm in the middle of, you know, a family crisis. I have a family member who's spiraling out of control. You know, things are not good. And I'm on the phone, and this doctor comes in. I get off the phone, and I can barely talk. I'm in so much pain. It felt like there was a vice around my back, and somebody was sticking hot pokers in it. Maybe for back of it was the most I've never felt pain like that in my life. And the doctor says to me, you know, has anybody talked to you about this blood infection you have? And I said, what? What blood infection? He said, we have a very serious staph infection in your blood. And I was like, okay, when do I get to go home? Because at the time, you know, I'm going through what is a family crisis, and it's bad. So, and he looked at me and he said, you're not going home anytime soon. It'll probably be a week, yeah, because you'll die. If you go home, you'll be dead in 36 hours. He said by tomorrow. And then later on he said, you know, 36 hours, you'll be septic within 24 hours and you'll be dead in 36. So I had to call my wife, my fiance at the time, and I said, look, I'm you know, I can't come home. So she was pretty upset, obviously, because she's pretty freaked out. There's a lot going on. And I spent 7 days almost in the hospital. I mean, I couldn't walk on my own. Nurses had to take me out of bed to go to the bathroom. It was bad. It was just an awful, awful experience. The infectious disease doctor at the time actually told me that this pain is as close to childbirth as you can get without having babies. And so I put up with that pain for over 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks, and probably 3 weeks in total before the antibiotics kicked in. Anyway, I went home. I could hardly walk when I got home still. One of my lungs collapsed in the hospital. It was just bad, all around bad. And of course, COVID's going on. Everything's closed. I'm stuck at home. I'm on a PICC line, so I've got a PICC line in my arm. And I have to, you know, a nurse has to come in twice a day. And I'm on IV twice a day for, you know, 6 weeks. And then I was on antibiotics for 18 weeks. It was a lot. It was a lot of stuff. And at the time, I had a thought process on, or at the time before, you know, work and business. I'm pretty hard worker. And I've taken a lot of pride in being a hard worker. That means something to me. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. You know, you work hard, you grind down, and I always was that guy. that, you know, you put in time, 12-hour days, who cares? You're fine. Put a smile on and keep going. And my wife used to say to me, fiance at the time, I guess, used to say to me, look, there's more to life than money and working. And I'd say, well, it's just a matter of priorities. I mean, for me, the way I can take care of my family is by working. So work has to be first. And then, you know, kids obviously are super important. And, you know, and the complaint that my wife had, and, you know, at the time I didn't understand it. I really didn't, was, listen, you know, you have work, then you have kids, and I get whatever's left over. And I couldn't understand why she had a problem with it, honestly, at the time. I couldn't get it. You know, I felt like I'm doing it all. I can do it all, which you can't. Anyway, almost dying for me. At the time, it didn't make me feel like I was changing, but, you know, I was miserable, and I was miserable for several months afterwards. Couldn't work out. You know, a lot of stress from work, and about July of 2020, I remember driving to work and just thinking, what in the hell am I doing? You know, I had gone from 3 locations and 23 staff. I had like 8 staff now in 1 location. You know, we're not making as much money. There's not fewer people in the door. And I was stressed, but at the same time, it was oddly gratifying. And I don't know exactly how to, I don't know if gratifying is even the right word, but it just felt, you know, I was like, I can do this. I'm okay with this. And I'd always had this, you know, I want to make gross $2.5 million a year in the business. And we were on the track to do that. You know, we were booming. And suddenly it was like, it was July of that year, this switch just flipped in my head. My wife had suggested I read a book called The 5 Languages of Love, which I had skimmed before, but quite frankly, I hadn't read very carefully. But I'm a big believer that sometimes things come to you when they should come to you. And it came to me, and I read it, with an open mind, and it changed everything about what I thought about myself. I understood myself better, I understood my wife better, and then it didn't happen overnight, and I think that's where maybe I lose my focus with people who are always saying, you know, I had this overnight like epiphany. It wasn't an overnight epiphany for me, but it was gradual over a couple months. I mean, the reading of the book, that was an epiphany. It changed the way I communicated with my wife. It changed the way I communicated with my kids. It changed how I thought about myself. But very quickly after that, you know, in the next month or so, suddenly I had a whole different opinion on work. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to do $2.5 million or $3 million in business. Because I would think back, and I'm like, you know, in January and February of 2020, we did the biggest months we'd ever done, and I was stressed and I felt terrible. And I mean that, like, stressed right up to the top of my head. And then by, you know, August, September of 2020, I'm not really stressed anymore, and I should be. I'm making less money, but I just felt like, you know, it's going to be okay. I'll be fine. I don't need to make $1 million. It's just that, you know, it's not, I guess I just changed. And I think, honestly, the staph infection and almost dying changed my priority on who I was as a person. And it made me realize, shit, you could be dead tomorrow. You may actually be dead tomorrow. And there's only 2 ways to come out of that, I think. You can come out of a near-death experience and say, you know what, I want to party and have more fun, which is not my style. I'm not a big party animal. I'm not the most excited guy. Or you can come out of it and you can say, you know what, I'm going to change some things in the important stuff in my life. My family is going to be the number one priority for me. And that's what happened. My family is my number one priority. Dev and the kids that's it. You know, there's no one more important to me than them. And work, when I was always like, you know, well, work takes care of family, you know, I believed that. You know, I needed to work first, and it's not, you know, in the end of the day, Now I feel like that's the stupidest thing I ever said in my life. It just, you know, I don't even believe it anymore. And maybe I've never understood work-life balance before. I still love my work. I love what I do. I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. I get to spend time with people I enjoy. Like, it's amazing. But on the other side of it, you know, now I get it. There's more important things. And you know what? I enjoy my time with the kids. I enjoy my time with my wife so much more. I'm not stressed out about, oh, work anymore. I'm like, you know, it's going to come. It'll be fine. And it changed. I think it changed my whole outlook. And so, you know what? You know, at the end of the day, I'm super happy that, you know, I got the staph infection. I'm happy I almost died because I think it changed me. I think I had the potential to be, you know, better, but this allowed me. It was the impetus to make me say, okay, you have to do it. And so the staph infection, in a lot of ways, was a blessing in disguise for me. It really was. It actually changed my life.